Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, viewers. We're just at about 7:33 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. I'm Julien Skeete. We want to do a quick shout out to some of our viewers online before we head into this interview. I see Linda Lenny Marshall. We also see that we have viewers watching from the Philippines. Good morning to you. I also see in the mix Andel Allen, Travis Moses, Johnson Hawk joining us, Shirley Cook. Good morning to you, Lisa James, Mrs. Joy Charles out there in Susulands. Good morning to each and every one of you. And we want to say thank you so much for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show. In this next interview, we're heading straight on into discussions with Bradon Roberts, tutor Tobago officer. And we're speaking updates on back to school. Good morning to you and welcome, Bradon.
Good morning to the viewers and listeners.
All right, so as we get the conversation started, we just had the school term resume. After Easter, we are in what we would describe as the final term for the school year. We want to get some feedback from tutor. How has that been based on your reports and updates coming out of yesterday, the first day back out?
Right, so I would have been out yesterday. I visited from Plymouth School, the north side, all the way up to Lansford. I'll be out visiting schools again today. Even the schools I wasn't able to visit, I would have made some calls to find out how things were going and so on. And just as school would have closed, it would have opened back. I'm not certain of what works would have been done. I know that there are some schools with their electrical issues, their plumbing issues with their AC units and so on. But my concern is the schools that would have would have visited and had the sightings of rat droppings and so on, and they were supposed to treat with those. We have no evidence of anything being done where that is concerned, but school would have reopened. Schools would have been in a position where they could open, but it's not just to have schools open. We need to have schools at a level where it functions to the efficiency where teaching and learning would be as effective as we would want it to be.
So we want to get an idea from you, because we know when you were on the last time around, one of the discussions we spoke to was looking at what is that proactive approach or that encouragement being put forward on the part of tutor. I mean, it's still relatively early, but ensuring that we do not fall into what is that seems to be that perennial issue that we wait until July, August to work out an entire program, and then there's the tutor representing, and there's education, and then we get to the start of a new school term and we said, oh my God, 2 months have gone. What proactive efforts have been taking place thus far? Even if you're to speak from the perspective of tutor in terms of making that representation to the Division of Education.
Right, well, I would say we had quite a fruitful meeting with the secretary. That would have been a couple of Mondays ago. There was the conclusion that we will need to come and have further discussions on some of those things to further flesh them out. So we look forward to that. We also have data gathering form that is out into the various schools. We hope to submit to the division, if not Friday, early next week, all the plumbing issues, all the lighting issues, so we don't have to be waiting July, August to see if and when they're starting. At least we will be able to monitor what the division is prioritizing and so on, so we can have an input in that, because the current system is that we ask of principals to submit the issues of the schools, but all the principals are not that technical to see if this is critical or not. So we would need the project implementation unit of the division to visit these schools. Now, they may not be able to visit all schools each month, so that's where tutor plays that role. We would have had in the past where the scope of works would have been shared with the union, so we would monitor what is being done at the schools and so on, could play that role in assisting the division. But that would have been stopped a few years back, I think, was under Mr. Charles when he was the secretary. So we are gathering that data, and that should be submitted to the division by next week latest.
All right. So we can anticipate that there would be some forward efforts in that regard.
Yes, indeed.
All right. One of the things I know that we've also spoken to is what seems to be that issue of rising violence, which certainly puts at risk our teachers, those who just visit the compound, and in fact puts at a very broad area of compromise. It's never a good thing when we can see going viral one of our schools here in Tobago, in fact anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago. What efforts are being made in that direction to be able to try to quell this issue? Are there any further recommendations on the part of tutors how we can approach that issue?
Well, I've heard of meetings with the TTPS, the secretary, and I have not been a part of that. I am of the belief that the division in the background is working on some things, but in the meantime, things are happening. The issue as I see it is persons are not of that moral standing and ethical standing as we were in the past, and we look at the music that influencing our young persons now. You see adults coming up to the school not so much to address the issue with the child, but to address the teacher who probably is trying to scold the child for whatever reason. So we need to be able to infiltrate the minds of our young persons and the adults. I'm not certain what quick fix measure there could really be, but we have to change, as I would have always said, the curriculum, the way we teach and how we affect the minds. If we don't do that, you can put scanners, you can put police officers. If persons have that inclination to do wrongdoing, there's very little that you can do. So we have to work on the mind, and that's where I believe, well, the discussions we have with the secretary in terms of how we need to restructure things, it went well. So I trust that we're going to make some of those things. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be a today for tomorrow thing, but we hope to have some consistency in the effort towards making the change.
All right. Is teacher concerned any at all about safety and security of its teachers? I mean, yes, obviously we always have that for our students, but in terms of the teachers, at a time where there continues to be challenges within the classroom, because the natural inclination as an adult, and this is putting aside profession here, when you see something like that happening, some would have naturally intervened in our time. I don't know if they still do now, but now you're probably more concerned. Is there any concern on the part of tutors still as it relates to safety with regards to some of the happenings now that we're seeing in schools?
Well, we are most definitely concerned, and when I would say very few jobs are easy jobs, and the teaching profession is not a profession that is not for the faint-hearted. You have to be on top of your game, because as an adult, it will be irresponsible to leave two children to slug it out and have significant damages to another. However, there is nothing in place to protect that teacher who intervenes, and let's say you grab a child a particular way. You may even be in trouble for the way in which you intervene in quelling the situation. So yes, we are very concerned that to date, we don't have a solution. So that's why I've always been about making the environment safe by changing the minds, because there's very little that can be done now. Now we have been speaking towards the NTS and their ability to intervene and so on. Until something changes there, we ask our teachers to be cautious. We need to make the environment safer by the persons who are there and working on that manner. That's my focus. There's very little you will do to say make the school environment safe as a quick fix. So yes, we are very concerned, and we give the guidance. There are teachers who would have been injured intervening in fights, so how they do the injury leave and the compensation and so on. Those are things that we monitor. But we always ask our teachers to be very cautious in your intervention, and even your tone of speech, the language that you use, the vocabulary that you use. These are things that we need to be mindful of when we look at the different circumstances, and especially where you may have aggrieved parents coming up to the compound and so on. It's better to avoid such situations, either you go to the principal office and so, than to confront persons.
And I'm wondering about this time, in terms of the role to be played in the school system, especially at the point where we are back at the start of the school term. Tell us a little bit about the safety officers. I mean, I recall in our time a few years ago, I don't know that we had safety officers. It almost seems as something relatively new. What we knew, if you were going to Scarborough Sec, you knew Lincoln Warner, you knew Noel Sosa. If you were going to Signal Hill, you knew Cecil Darimper. If you were going, you knew Chippy Mack. The point is, you knew persons who weren't fearful to jump over a desk and to deal with you. But now it's a kind of different time that we are operating in. How are those who are, in terms of those safety officers and so, expected now to function within the school space?
Right. So we always had deans, and deans would have played that role in the discipline, and so a greater role in the discipline of the students and so on. However, we have safety officers now who have a more direct role in the managing of that. Some schools would have about two, 3 safety officers. I am not certain how effective it is in really dealing with the issues. Sometimes we believe more is better, but not so much. It's more of how the thing is managed. So at the end of the day, the safety officers, just like the MTS officers, are human beings. we are seeing now what is creating the fear in persons to act is somehow we find the rights in wrongdoing. So as even the safety officers, whatever they do to intervene, police officers, whatever they do to intervene may land themselves into trouble. So the human aspect of these persons put them in a position where they are very cautious in doing what we would expect. So you don't expect to see teachers scampering over a table to go and arrest any child. You know the kind of problems you may end up in. So you see the rights movement that we would have had over the years, and funny to come from a union officer, but the rights movement where we have all these children rights now and all these the judges rule and all these things about how to interact with children would have caused a significant change as to how adults interact with children.
I want you to tell us a little bit as well as we look at the heading back into this school term. I know that there were some issues within schools about vacancies and having sufficient. What is the staff support like now generally within our school system?
I know the division been trying to source like lab attendants, farm attendants and so on, and been unsuccessful. I'm not certain to the extent of the challenges. We also have some schools, like Bishop's recently got a clerk tree who does the managing of the office and those accounting things and so on. The teaching population, though, there's significant shortage, where we are now putting persons on contract, which we are trying to get persons off of contract. The secretary did indicate, and even the administrator did indicate, that they are almost to the point of concluding their report towards making an advancement to cabinet, so we're supposed to have a meeting on that sometime soon. That is a major project for the association and as well as the division. So we continue to, so I look forward to that meeting and we continue to work towards making that a reality, because for the contract teachers, every 2-3 years, somebody comes up with this motivation, yes, we're going to work on this, and then it dies down. It cannot die down. Under my tenure as Tobago officer, and I trust that the secretary who was a contract officer would not want to limit or have this 4-year period and not have this done. So we are working and hopefully working together. So I'm looking forward to that meeting. There's one other thing though. I mean, I looked at the news last night and I find that there are issues that we raise and there's no need to add the steroids. So I don't get it from the station. But we add the steroids to the news and we create this major conflict. We are not at war with the division at all. We try our very best to work with. Of course, we depend on the media to bring our issues across. So that's where the interviews and so would come. But we are more on the goals and attaining those, and I would want to have a collaborative effort. So I'm hoping the division make it easy for the association to be collaborative with them as well, because we bring things to their attention and they take long, and I mean, to address some of these things. And if I could quickly mention back the Mount St. George with the cleaning of the school and so on, those are low-hanging things that we could treat with. So if we have those things treated with, we would not have such a banter coming across in the media as it came across last night. I was amazed when I heard how it was brought across.
All right, certainly. But it's interesting that you've made that call, and that's a very good indication in terms of always that willingness to work along. But don't get Bradon wrong at all. When he needs to war with you,
yes,
he will certainly ensure that the representation is there. But it gives a good signal in terms of that there's an existing relation, because we know where things would have started in terms of treating with some of the issues and concerns. And what we are more hopeful for now as the Tobago populace is that we will see the results coming out of this working relationship as best as possible between tutor and the Division of Education. Any other things that you would want to share on before we wrap this morning?
Right, so I would always call on the teachers. The association would fight the battles. We want the focus to be on the teaching and the learning and having the environment enriched. We are calling on the division to assist the teachers in being able to focus on the classroom and not so much on the things that are not happening in the office with the files and the missing files and who can get the back pay yet and who can get the increments yet and so on. We want persons to be able to focus on the teaching and the learning, and of course the parents come on board. You may not be able to do the maths or the grammar and so on, but ensure that the child is doing a little revision and so on, and we work collaboratively. I think there's too much fighting and from where I sit, we're running on the same spot. We need to make some progress in education.
Excellent indeed. Thank you so much, Bradon Roberts, the Tobago officer, certainly bringing us those updates as students have head back out to school, students and teachers yesterday. And we're looking forward to what would be a productive term. And yes, I have a commitment here from Bradon, and we're going to be asking the same questions when we have the secretary and assistant secretary and the relevant officers on, that you two are making your efforts to ensure that come this 2024, we see a fundamental difference as it relates to the program of school repairs and other factors to ensure that our students fundamentally are able to benefit. And as I always make the point, if we get this right in some way, form or fashion, we don't have to get all right, but if we get it right in some way, form or fashion, we continue to impact the lives of those who become a critical facet in terms of our continued growth and development of the island and in fact the country and beyond. Our students today, certainly those who will be leading the charge tomorrow and moving ahead. So let's play our part as stakeholders within the mix. Thank you very much again, Bradon Roberts, for joining us here on set, Tutor Tobago officer. And viewers, we want to thank you so much for the continued love and support and for choosing the Tobago Updates morning show, and to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.